Hey, this is Kevin Syracuse. We're live outside here at Sports Hour. Did you get that?
Oh my God! Don't make it hit your face.
I understand it's football, but it's not football.
Hello everyone, welcome into another episode of Sports Hour. I'm Josh Schmidt. Alongside me is the speed demon himself, Jared Marsh. And we're here to talk to you about the NHL trade deadline that wrapped up today at 3 p.m. And boy,
wow,
it was a wild one for us Sabres fans, but we'll get to that.
Was.
We'll get to the whole trade deadline in a little bit. First, we got some games to cover for you. So first up here, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs taking on the Ottawa Senators. And well, this one turned out how everyone expected it to turn out because, you know, it's Toronto and it's Ottawa. And Ottawa's at the bottom of the standings and Toronto's at the north. And those games just go how you expect them to. But Austin Matthews gets his third NHL hat trick, and he now leads the league with 31 goals as he's working towards 40 now.
Yeah, this was a high-scoring game. I think it was 6-5 Toronto. It finished out. Again, like Josh said, I mean, obviously very huge for the Leafs. I mean, it doesn't really matter to them. They're still on top of the Scotia North, and then the Suns are still in last place. But, like, I would say, again, you know, the other key players from the Leafs, obviously, Mitch Marner, Galchenyuk, and also Jake Campbell, too, their goaltender, who made 27 saves for his 11th straight win, which is amazing.
Yeah, Jack Campbell set the NHL record that night with his 11th straight win. He set the Leafs record the night prior with his 10th straight win, and I mean he's been incredible. I mean, I think they found their new starter. I hope I didn't just jinx him by saying that, but Freddie Anderson went down a couple weeks ago with an injury, and people were really worried about how the Leafs were going to fare. And I think Jack Campbell has really stepped into this role and made it his own. I mean, I remember when they traded for him last year, and it was a very good pickup.
Yeah.
And it still looks to be a very good pickup for them. So it's paying off for him in dividends here.
Yeah, and again, the Suns, obviously, you know, they didn't do so hot. They had the lead, but it was just too many, like, just careless giveaways in the end.
Yeah, sounds like a very familiar team that we know.
Yeah.
But moving on to the Mass Mutual East, the Caps roll over the Bruins 8-1.
I love this.
This was incredible. I'm sorry. That's insane that the Bruins just looked that bad against the Capitals.
Yeah, I just want to say, I just want to give a shout out to my friend back home. Bruins suck. All right, go on, Josh.
But yeah, no, this one's not even a close game. The Caps are absolutely dominating here. Goals by Oshie, Eller, Dowd, Sheary, and Wilson. An all-around team effort. 15 players. I don't know what you had here.
Yeah, it was 15 players on the Caps got points. There was 12 of the forwards, which was amazing.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure.
That's team effort there. And Vitek Vanacek has continued to show that he is coming into this league very strongly. And, you know, he had to step in when Ilya Samsonov went down with COVID. He also had to step up because Henrik Lundqvist at the beginning of the year went down with heart problems, and he almost came back, but he's having some more complications, unfortunately, some inflammation in areas that he shouldn't have inflammation. So he's trying to come back by the time the Caps make the playoffs. But with that said, Vanacek makes 34 saves and another win for him here and another win for Washington.
I just love to see it. Every time Boston loses, I don't care who they're playing. I just love to see Boston lose, and I love the Caps. They've been one of my favorite teams for a long time. I love Alexander Ovechkin. I love all the players on the team, and it's just really nice to see the Caps just roll over the Bruins.
One other nice thing here that the Bruins did, even though they lost, they did show a video tribute in honor of Zdeno Chara. This was his first game back in Boston when fans were allowed in the crowd. So really nice to show Big Z what they were thankful for, and he showed them that he's on a new chapter of his career now with a big win.
Which is awesome, by the way. Yeah, and again, going back to the Bruins here, obviously, you know, they were still missing three key defensemen, Charlie McAvoy, Brandon Carlo, and I forgot the other guy's first name.
Matt Grzelcyk.
Matt Grzelcyk, yeah.
So along with Chara leaving, they've had lots of injury problems, and it's just been not great on defense for the Bruins so far. But they're still clinging on to that fourth place spot in the East, which is good. Thanks to the Sabres continually beating the Philadelphia Flyers as they scored 2 goals in 25 seconds in yesterday's win
Love to
to
see
come
it.
back in the third with 3 goals in the third. But anyway, so the big talk of today, the trade deadline. It was quite the wild one in the last few minutes. I mean, I think we had probably 10 trades come in after 3 o'clock, which is normal, but not expected in a year like this with cap issues and COVID and everything like that. Some notable trades for this year's trade deadline. The LA Kings trade veteran Jeff Carter, 50% retained, to Pittsburgh for a conditional 2020 second, third rounder and a conditional 2023 fourth rounder. The conditions are if the Penguins make it to the finals this year and Carter plays 50% of those games, it goes from a third to a second rounder, and the fourth becomes a third if Carter plays at least 50 games next season. So, not great return for the Kings, but Jeff Carter is an aging forward, and he has a lot of upside for the Penguins at least. He's got veteran presence. He'll probably mesh well with Crosby and Malkin and provide, veteran presence for the younger guys on the team. So what's your take on this trade?
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. I think he's gonna kind of fit in here with Crosby and Malkin, and kind of like, do you see him on the third line maybe, or do you see him playing with Malkin?
It's tough to say. I mean, he is a bit older, like I said, but I think he's more of a third, fourth line guy. He'll probably help you out in the PK a lot too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would definitely say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next trade we have was another big one. Toronto trades a 2022 third rounder to Calgary for goaltender David Rittich, who is also 50% retained. So a lot of retention this year because of the cap and with the flat cap and everything like that. So a lot of contracts we saw retained, and we'll see a few interesting ones down the road here. But this is great I think this is great for Toronto. What do you think about this one, Jimmy?
Yeah, I would definitely say, obviously, like we just talked about, though. I mean, I think Toronto does have their goalie, obviously, with Jake Campbell right now. But it's definitely nice to see Toronto definitely have a backup just in case.
Yeah, and I mean, if Campbell goes down in the playoffs and Anderson's not healthy yet, and Michael Hutchinson is their backup.
Yeah.
And I mean, sure, he did well for Colorado when he was there in the playoffs, but he's no starting goalie for Toronto in this sense.
Definitely.
And the final big trade of the day, this one was a doozy. This came about 46 minutes after 3 o'clock. While it did get called into the NHL in time, it wasn't formally announced until almost an hour later.
Wow.
So this one involves your Washington Capitals. Detroit trades Anthony Mantha to Washington for Jakub Vrana, Richard Panik, a 2021 first, and a 2022 second. So a very big trade there. Mantha is a very good player for Detroit. He's had about 4.5 seasons in the league, and he's been nothing but promising. He's improved his numbers every single year. But much can be said about much of the same can be said about Vrana. So I think this is pretty interesting here. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with what you just said. I mean, I think Anthony Mantha is going to be a great addition to this Washington Capitals team. Obviously, getting rid of Jakub Vrana and even Richard Panik too. I mean, Richard Panik's been really good for the Caps as well. So it's sad to see Jakub Vrana and Panik go, but I think it's a great addition to this Washington team.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty interesting to see those picks go the other way as well, because like I said, that's quite a bit to pay for Anthony Mantha. And it sure looks like Steve Yzerman's turning Detroit into what he did with Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And I kind of like to see it because, I mean, as a fellow tank team, I like seeing another tank team start to do better.
Yeah, for
even
sure.
though it is Detroit.
Yes.
Yeah, so that wraps up a bit of our notable trades. And now we'll get to a little more of the weird ones. Like I said, we had a lot of issues this year with money and teams trying to play money broker and cap broker for other teams. So there were 3 big trades that involved 3 third-party teams that would eat up cap space. So we saw this last year when Robin Lehner got traded to Vegas. First, he was traded to Toronto. Toronto retained some of the salary, sent him to Vegas for a draft pick. So it's kind of one of these, it makes your head spin a little bit. But here's the best way we can break this down. So first one's first. Toronto acquires Nick Foligno and Stefan Noesen. Nick Foligno is at 50% retained, but before he came from Columbus to Toronto, he first goes to San Jose, and San Jose retains some of the money, and then he gets shipped off to Toronto. So Columbus winds up with a first and a fourth from Toronto, nothing from San Jose. San Jose winds up with a fourth from Toronto, nothing from Columbus. And Toronto ends up with Foligno and Nosen, and that's it. So, kind of confusing, but I think it's going to be very good for all teams here. I mean, the pick to Toronto will most likely, or the pick to Columbus will most likely be a 30th or a 31st, not to jinx anybody.
Yeah.
But, I mean, San Jose is just kind of stepping in to help with the money, and Foligno goes to his father's former team and looks to be on a very stacked Leaf squad.
Yeah, I would definitely say. And if the Jackets are going to start going downhill from here, because that was their captain, and that's just really hard to get rid of someone important like that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it sucks to see him leave the city like that,
for sure.
But I think he'll do well in Toronto.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The next big one we had was the Detroit Red Wings acquire, well, okay, this one's another one of those weird ones. Tampa Bay acquires David Savard from Columbus, another Columbus trade, and Brian Lashoff from the Detroit Red Wings. Columbus receives from Tampa Bay a first this year and a third next year. Detroit receives a fourth from Tampa Bay and nothing from, technically, David Savard from Columbus, who they send to Tampa.
Yep.
And then they also retain 50% of Savard's cap hit and then send him to Tampa, because Tampa just plays the cap all year long.
Yeah.
But what's your take on this one here?
Yeah, I think, again, I mean, getting rid of Nick Foligno, obviously, David Savard, he was a great addition for that defense, obviously, with Seth Jones. And I was reading something like Seth Jones was just sad that he's going to be gone, so it can't get any worse for Columbus.
Yeah, I mean, Columbus is really starting to sell the farm here on these draft picks, but that leaves them with 3 first-round draft picks now in this year's draft.
That's good at least.
So, but while majority of them will probably be lower down in the draft. So, moving on to our final section, the Buffalo Sabres trades.
Oof.
Sabres trade last night, and I believe it was around 12:30 in the morning, or 12:30 in the morning, somewhere around there. The Sabres trade Taylor Hall and Curtis Lazar to Boston for Anders Bjork and a second in this year's draft. Taylor Hall had 50% retained off of his contract, and nothing was retained off of Bjork's contract. That is it. You heard me correctly. That is the return. Hall and Lazar for Bjork in a second.
I don't know what to say, Josh.
This one leaves a
really
very
don't.
bad taste in my mouth.
I don't know. I mean, look, me and you were talking before the show, and you told me, I don't want to bash Kevin Adams because he was in a corner. But at the same time, it is Taylor Hall, and I get it, he's not the best player to work with, but I mean, he was still a very important player for this Buffalo Sabres team, obviously with Jack Eichel out. But I just hate the fact that he went to Boston. Ugh.
Yeah. And his comments in his press conference said, along the lines of, I've always wanted to play in Boston. They were one of the teams I was looking at this summer. And it looks like, in my eyes, he signed with Buffalo just because of Ralph Kruger.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And it's also reported that today he was on his way to Boston, driving there himself to play against the Sabres tomorrow night.
Wow.
And I just really hope that helps, spark this team a little bit. And we might see a little feistiness from Ristolainen or Colin Miller or somebody like that. But we'll have to see how that pans out for the Sabres. I don't think it will pan out well. No. Bjork looks like he might be okay, but we'll have to see what happens here down the road.
Yeah.
But that's going to wrap us up for hockey. Another trade deadline is in the books. Up next, we're going to have Kevin, who's going to step in as host, and Meyer will be on for basketball.
We've been down there. You gotta do the same. Post office. All you do is sign. So don't get nervous. Sign your name. For selective service. It takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. For selective service.
Hey guys, if you're about to turn 18, you've got to register with Selective Service. It's simple. Just go down to the post office, fill out a card, and turn it in. That's all there is to it. There's no draft now. You're just adding your name to Selective Service's list in case there's a national emergency.
So if you're 18 now, Selective Service, you gotta get down to the post office.
Register with Selective Service. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the law.
Takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. Selective Service.
What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink.
If it's time for a drink this many times a day, you're not a social drinker. You're a problem drinker. And you could be well on your way to really messing up your life. Think about it. Talk to somebody about it. Do something about it before it's too late. A message in the interest of your better health from the American Medical Association.
This is not a commercial. If you think measles, mumps, whooping cough, or polio are nothing to worry about, you'd better think again, because they could make your child go blind or deaf. They can cripple or kill. To protect children, you have to get them immunized. Get them their shots. It costs nothing or very little, so get it done now by your doctor or local health center. Your child's future is in your hands. Don't let her down.
A message in the interest of better health from the American Medical Association.
Kevin Syracuse and Meyer Mikulski with you here now to talk about the NBA. And Meyer, first, before we get into the NBA, we have to talk about the NCAA championship game that happened right after our show ended last week, and that was pretty much the opposite of what we predicted. We thought it was going to be pretty back and forth throughout the whole night, but it was just all Baylor. It was 11-1, I believe, when we were on talking about the NBA, and after that it was just all Baylor the rest of the night. They won 86-70.
Yeah, to be honest, the game, it didn't live up to my expectations. I thought it would be more competitive. And that game 2 nights before, when Gonzaga played against UCLA, that was a tough act to follow. Overall, Gonzaga got punched in the mouth and didn't know how to respond. But credit to Baylor, because they were able to assert themselves and play their game and take Gonzaga out of theirs.
Well, like I said, the final score was 86-70. Baylor finishes with their first championship in school history with a 28-2 record. Gonzaga was looking for their first title. They fell to 31-1, so they were unable to have that perfect season, which is so hard to do. But like we were saying, it's interesting how we kind of predicted that. We were looking at the one aspect of, well, Baylor is kind of, they hit that adversity moment in the middle of the year with COVID, and maybe they'll use that as momentum going into this game, whereas Gonzaga, they did have that adversity, but not to the same extent. They didn't suffer a loss in the middle of the year to hit that reset button. So I thought Gonzaga still had a good enough team to pull it off, but it just shows that anything can happen on any night.
And it goes to show you that there's levels to adversity as well.
So congrats to Baylor on their first championship in school history. A great team, and I think they'll be back next year too. I don't know about a championship, but I think they'll have a solid team again next year.
Yeah, but they're probably going to lose their backcourt to the draft.
Well, speaking of the draft and the NBA, so now switching over to the NBA, we'll talk about a couple games from each day over the weekend, and the first one we have on our list here is Boston and Minnesota, as the Celtics took this one 145-136.
Yeah, this is arguably the best stretch of basketball that the Celtics have played this whole year. They're now just 2 games above 500 and currently hold the 7th spot. And if the playoffs started today, they would play the Knicks in the play-in tournament. And they were down most of this game, but they pulled through despite having a lot of turnovers, especially from their star players like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who have 5 each, and Kemba Walker, who have 4. And at times this season, they've had trouble with playing down to their competition. And the question remains with them is, will their style of play be sustainable in the playoffs, assuming that they make it?
So with the new playoff format, the 7 plays the 8 seed, correct? And then 9 plays 10?
But whoever wins out of 7 and 8 gets the 7 seed. But then whoever loses that game has to wait for the winner of 9 and 10. And whoever wins that last game gets the final spot in the playoffs.
Which, so say that again. So the loser of the 7 and the 8 waits for?
So yeah, loser of 7 and 8 has to play the winner of 9 and 10. And whoever wins that game gets the 8th spot.
Oh, okay. So I understand that, because if you do get the 8 seed, I mean, in any other year you would be in the playoffs. So that is fair that they do have a chance to. It's not like single elimination where you lose and then you're done, and then the 10 seed could get in the playoffs. So right now, it is Boston with the 7th seed with a 28-26 record. The Knicks are in the 8th spot with a 27-27 record. And then Indiana is the 9th seed with a 25-27 record. And Chicago is at number 10 with 22-30. And then right behind them is Toronto. They are 2 games back, 21-33, which we will be talking about in a little bit here. Well, actually, the next team on our list was Atlanta and Chicago, as the Hawks took this one 120-108.
So the Hawks, they were able to overcome Zach LaVine's offensive explosion. They allowed him to score 39 points in the first half. But in the second half, they only held him to 11. But Trae Young, he had an offensive explosion of his own, scoring 42 points. Overall, the Hawks, they've been on a roll ever since they hired Nate McMillan to be their new head coach. But I feel like they haven't gotten enough attention for it. And they currently hold the 4th spot in the East. But in the beginning of the season, they were looked at more as an underachieving team. But they were able to turn that narrative around.
Yeah, why do you think that is? Because like you said, at the beginning of the year, I think a lot of people had the Hawks towards the bottom of the conference. But like you said, they're in the 4th spot right now with the 29-25 record, and they're 7.5 back of Philadelphia and Brooklyn for the number 1 seed.
Wait, ask that question again? My bad.
I was just saying, so why do you think Atlanta was able to overcome those obstacles and prove the doubters wrong this year, as a lot of people thought that they were going to be towards the bottom?
I think it's just the philosophy that Nate McMillan coaches with. I think when you're a defensive-minded coach like Nate McMillan, you're able to get through to your younger players more.
Yeah, so, I mean, Atlanta's having a really good year considering the expectations going into this year. And like we said, Chicago is in the 10th spot right now with a 22-30 record. Now, moving on here. Oh, actually, one more thing about Chicago. What was the stat about Zach LaVine the other night? He went off, didn't he?
Yeah, he had 39 points in the first half, but he ended up scoring 50 for the whole game.
Yeah, so he had 39 points in the first half. So we talked about Zach LaVine getting help with Nikola Vucevic, with the Bulls acquiring Vucevic in that trade. So we'll see if the Bulls can turn that into some playoff success here, because I think that's what Zach LaVine needed.
Yeah, but recently they've been 6-3 rather, since the trade up to that point, and they haven't gotten the results that they wanted. But it's going to take them a while to gel. You know, Rome wasn't built to one day, so they just need a little bit more time, and then we'll see the full extent of their potential.
Now going to Saturday's games, the Lakers destroyed the Nets 126-101 without LeBron and Anthony Davis.
So, as a note, every game's margin of victory from Saturday was at least 15 points. But my takeaway from that game was that on paper, I didn't think the game would actually be worth watching because there was no LeBron or Anthony Davis. They also played without Kyle Kuzma, Marc Gasol, and Wesley Matthews. But the Lakers proved me wrong. In the first half, the Lakers, they were just hanging with the Nets. But then the second half, they rode on that confidence, and they were able to assert their dominance.
Well, I just saw a report that LeBron could be out for another 3 weeks, and he was injured 3 weeks ago with a timetable of 4 to 6 weeks. So it looks like he will be using the max here, 6 weeks to return. Anthony Davis, they said he could return as soon as 10 days. So it's going to be a little bit more time before the Lakers are healthy again. And right now, looking at the standings, they are in 5th place right now. They are 7 games back of Utah. So they have slipped a little bit since those injuries. But again, Utah and Phoenix have been that good this year. So it is hard when those teams are playing that well. But that just goes to show you how important LeBron and Anthony Davis are to the Lakers.
And I think if you're a Laker fan, you shouldn't overreact too much to beating the Nets, because you never know what can happen in the playoffs. You just need to get hot at the right time. That's what really matters. It doesn't matter what you do in the regular season.
Well, the Lakers are 11-13 since they lost Anthony Davis and 4-7 since LeBron went down. Now, moving on to our other Saturday game, we saw the Raptors take down the Cavaliers 135-115. And Meyer, before we get into the specifics here, do you think Toronto can make a late playoff push here?
I'm not a big believer in them this year. They've been one of the more disappointing teams in the league. they might have to make some changes in the offseason.
Well, like I said a couple of minutes ago, they are 2 games back of Chicago for that 10th spot. So they still do have Kyle Lowry. They didn't trade him at the deadline. They have Pascal Siakam. They acquired Gary Trent Jr. from Portland, and that's been a nice pickup so far.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm not sure if that's going to be enough for the Raptors this year.
And on the Raptors, Gary Trent Jr., he had a career night with 44 points, and he only missed 2 shots. His confidence from the bubble seemed to have carried over into this season, and he looks to be a good piece for the future moving forward.
Yeah, and then as for the Cavaliers, they are 19 and 34. So they're at the bottom of the standings. I don't see anything out of them this year. I don't see a late push from them.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we'll see if... well, then again, I mean, Cleveland really is. They are just, 3.5 games back. But I just don't see it happening this year for the Cavs.
Yeah, exactly. They started off hot, though, but they just fell back to earth ever since.
Now, as for yesterday's games, Miami defeated Portland 107-98.
Yeah, I feel like this was a confidence booster for the Heat. They were able to keep Dame and CJ in check. They only scored 39 combined points. The Heat have been inconsistent this whole season, but they have won 4 of their last 5 and are currently 5th in the East. They have a tough schedule ahead of them, but I believe that the games ahead are winnable for them.
Now, Victor Oladipo, he's only played in 4 games since being acquired, correct?
Yes.
And he's just averaging 12 points with Miami, so he hasn't helped too much, but I mean, he has helped, but
Yeah.
I don't think enough as to the old Victor Oladipo that we're used to in Indiana.
Yeah.
But again, it's a small sample
Yeah,
size.
they're not going to ask Victor Oladipo to do what he did in Indiana necessarily. They're just going to ask him to play defense, really.
And to help Jimmy Butler
Yeah.
and Bam Adebayo. And finally, our last game here, the Clippers defeated the Pistons 131-124.
So throughout the whole game, the Clippers, they allowed Detroit to hang around for most of the game, but their experience helped them overcome that. And they were missing 3 starters in Kawhi Leonard, Serge Ibaka, and Patrick Beverly. But again, this was a game that they were supposed to win on paper. The Clippers, they've quietly been handling their business, but all season, in the eyes of the media, they're looked at as guilty until proven innocent.
Well, just about a minute left, so staying with the Clippers here, I'll just run over the standings real quick. So the standings starting with the West, it goes Utah, Phoenix, the Clippers are in 3rd, followed by Denver, the Lakers, Portland, Dallas, Memphis, and then San Antonio and Golden State hold the 9th and the 10th spots. And then back in the East, we have Philadelphia and Brooklyn tied for 1st, followed by Milwaukee, Atlanta, Miami, Charlotte, Boston, New York, and then the Pacers and the Bulls are the 9th and the 10th seeds, like I mentioned. And just to wrap it up, Meyer, the games that are in progress right now, the 4th quarter is starting in New York. The Knicks are beating the Lakers 81-68. The 76ers are beating the Mavericks 80-66 with a couple minutes left in the 3rd quarter. The Spurs are blowing out the Magic 73-44, 7 minutes left in the 3rd. The Jazz and the Wizards 26-22 Utah right now with about 4 minutes left in the 1st quarter. And then a couple other games that are just getting going. We have Memphis and Chicago, New Orleans and Sacramento, and then Denver and Golden State, and Houston and Phoenix will be tipping off at 10. So Meyer, thank you for coming on, and next we will have Aaron on to talk about the NFL.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving, the ultimate party foul.
You've messed up your son's haircut. Do you try to fix it? Work with what you've got? Or show solidarity?
Thank you, babe.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Remember that to love America is to love all Americans. Because love has no labels.
Había un niño que era muy sensible a luces y sonidos. Construía escondites donde no podían entrar. No le gustaba mirar a la gente a los ojos, lo hacía sentir incómodo. Un día se descubrió que tenía autismo. Con ayuda, poco a poco, aprendió a vivir mejor con ello.
Mientras más pronto se diagnostique, mejor. Conoce las señales en autismspeaks.org.
Your son wants to get a cat, but you're allergic. Do you A, prepare yourself, B, make the best of it,
C squared equals 25. Good job!
or C, find a loophole? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
We cannot be bystanders.
We can stop to make sure someone is okay.
We can warn someone when their drink isn't safe.
And disrupt the situation.
We can.
Get someone the cab.
Or walk them home safely.
We can make campuses safer for our friends.
Our roommates.
Our classmates. Our fellow human beings.
We cannot be bystanders.
We can. Intervene.
It's on us.
All of us.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Aaron Sember joins us now to talk about NFL free agency. And Aaron, I think we will finally be able to finish it this week. We've been diving into it the last couple weeks. The first couple weeks, signings were coming in like crazy. We kept having to refresh our page, but it's died down a lot. And now we should be able to finish all the free agent signings tonight and then get into the draft starting next week.
Yep, Sarah helped me last week. She filled in for me because we were doing way too much. But yeah, I'm ready to get back and finish this list off.
So starting with the linebackers, that's where we left off last week. We made it through the defensive line. But going to the linebackers now, there weren't too many huge names here with this class, but the two biggest names were probably Lavonte David and Matt Milano, and both of those guys re-signed with their teams.
Yeah, both solid hands. I mean, Matt Milano was definitely like a huge impact for the Bills with their deep playoff run this year. And of course, Lavonte David, you could pretty much argue that, you know, obviously with the Bucs now, everything's like, oh, Tom Brady. But you can argue that Lavonte David and Shaq Barrett were the ones that really sealed that Super Bowl win for the Chiefs, for sure. So it was good that they got to re-sign Lavonte David.
Well, they got paid like it too. David got 2 years, $25 million, and Milano got 4 years, $44 million. So again, those were the top two guys, and then following them were Jayon Brown re-signed with the Titans for 1 year, $5.25 million. Denzel Perryman, he recently signed with the Panthers for 2 years. And then that's pretty much it for the big names. We had Gerard Davis signed with the Jets for 1 year, $7 million. Landon Roberts re-signed with the Dolphins for a year. Alex Anzalone signed with the Lions for 1 year. Jordan Jenkins left the Jets for the Texans, 2 years, $6 million. And the only two remaining free agent linebackers are Vince Williams from Pittsburgh and KJ Wright with the Seahawks.
I mean, KJ Wright definitely was a huge impact for that Legion of Boom, but I'm pretty sure he's aging, and I don't know what team would really. I mean, veterans are always essential for a team, but who knows whatever he's going to be doing for the next, for next season.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised when I saw that KJ Wright is still a free agent because he's only 31. He's turning 32 this summer. So he still is towards the end of his prime, and he still has some good football left in him, I think. I mean, unless there's something behind the scenes that I'm not aware of, if I'm an NFL team right now that needs some linebacker help, I'm definitely looking after KJ Wright before we get into the draft here.
Yeah, for sure. Just like I said, another veteran hand for whatever defense wants to utilize him.
Now going over to the cornerbacks now. First on the list, Troy Hill signed with the Browns, 4 years, $24 million. William Jackson got a huge contract with Washington, 3 years, $42 million. He actually came out afterwards and said that Cincinnati was terrible and the fans treated him terribly and he's glad to be out. Maybe I said that a little bit worse. I don't remember exactly how he said it, but either way, he was saying that he did not enjoy his time in Cincinnati.
Yeah, also on this list, there is a bunch of veteran names here as well, like who did get picked up. We got Pat Pete, who was on the Cardinals for so many years. He signed with the Vikings, and Xavier Rhodes, he re-signed with the Colts, but he's another veteran presence. And then got a couple young guys here like Shaquille Griffin. He signed with the Jags for 3 years, and let's see.
Big contract there, $44.5 million.
For sure. Like Desmond King and Troy Hill, just solid guys who are definitely going to contribute to their new teams for sure.
Yeah, Desmond King got a 1-year deal worth $3.5 million from Houston. Mike Hilton signed with the Bengals for 4 years, $24 million. So the Bengals replaced Jackson with Hilton, and like you said, Xavier Rhodes re-signed with the Colts, 1 year, $6.5 million. And Ronald Darby signed with the Broncos, 3 years, $30 million for the former Bill right there. And Kyle Fuller, he was released by the Bears and then signed with the Broncos for 1 year, $9.5 million. So that's a great pickup there for Denver. Mackenzie Alexander signed with the Vikings. Adoree Jackson, that was another big one. He signed with the Giants for 3 years, $39 million.
It's a huge one only because of the fact that he's a jack of all trades. He could be a punt returner, kick returner, and so that's definitely another, good overall weapon for the Giants secondary and their team in general.
Now some free agents, or some cornerbacks who are still free agents. The biggest one, Richard Sherman, Quentin Dunbar, Brian Poole with the Jets, Nickel Roby-Coleman, Brashad Breeland with your Chiefs, Steven Nelson, Casey Hayward, who said he wants to come back. He's not retiring yet. Garyon Conley, AJ Bouye, Buster Skrine. So there are a lot of nice veterans here. If a team's looking for some help before the draft, you can fill some holes here with some of these guys.
I don't really have a lot of problems with a lot of these players. I do have a problem with Richard Sherman only because he came off of an ACL injury or a lower leg injury a couple years ago, and he's not fast. He can't really compete with the best receivers like he used to. He's not that dominant player anymore. So that's my only player I would be concerned of picking up in free agency for sure in the cornerback position.
Now moving over to the safeties, who are some of your top signings here? I mean, looking at the list here, the top two on the list are Justin Simmons. He re-signed with the Broncos for 4 years, $61 million. And then we saw Marcus Williams re-sign with the Saints for 1 year, $10.6 million. And Anthony Harris signed with the Eagles for 1 year, $5 million.
I mean, the ones that jump out to me are actually, like you said, Justin Simmons, he re-signed. He's really been a dominant presence in that secondary for sure. He's so young still, and he'll definitely make an impact for more years to come. And then another guy I was really surprised who got a big deal. He kind of did play lights out last year. He played pretty good. Was John Johnson III from the Rams. He signed with the Browns for 3 years, $33 million. I love that name, John Johnson. But yeah,
John Johnson III.
Yes, the third. So there's been 2 others before him.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how they order the players on this list here. We're using Sporting News that tracks all the free agents, and they list the top 50 signings. So it's a great website to use, but I'm just not sure the order that they put it in because, Anthony Harris, 1 year, $5 million. I don't know if that's one of the top signings because then you look further down on the list, you have
like Jalen Mills, for example, 4 years, 24. I feel like they're not really talking about longevity. They're more talking about I guess immediate impact. It is weird, but I see what you're saying.
Unless they just don't have an order at all. But we have Keanu Neal signed with the Cowboys, 1 year, $5 million. Xavier Woods signed with the Vikings for 1 year, $2.25 million. The Chiefs re-signed Daniel Sorensen.
That was big. That was big. He's definitely been very helpful. He's had some incredible thing with him. He's not really a good cover guy, but he's kind of like a down linebacker. He could literally hit. He could come up on the line of scrimmage and take your best, running back and just slam him to the ground. He's a hard-hitting guy, and it's a good thing the Chiefs got him back for another year.
Ricardo Allen signed with the Bengals. LaMarcus Joyner signed with the Jets for 1 year, $4.5 million. Kareem Jackson re-signed with the Broncos, and Josh Jones re-signed with the Jaguars. Trey Boston is still a free agent, and Malik Hooker. Those are the last two safety free agents. So most of them have been signed so far, and it was a pretty good class for the safeties.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely one of those that stuck out for me. A lot of them were pretty boring, but that definitely was an entertaining bunch of people.
Now, going over to special teams, can't forget about those guys.
Yep.
So starting with the kickers, Younghoe Koo re-signed with the Falcons for 1 year, and he was arguably the best kicker in the league.
For sure. And all these memes last year of like the GOAT, and like he's a great, he's just a great kicker. He obviously got released a couple years ago. He signed with, when the AAF was a thing, he was a kicker for that team, like one of the teams. That team folded. He got picked up by the Falcons, and he definitely made an immediate impact when it really mattered. And he helped, even though the Falcons team wasn't, too impressive last year. He was definitely a bright spot for that team.
Another big deal for the kickers that we saw, Cairo Santos re-signed with the Bears for 5 years, $16 million. And I think the Bears finally found their kicker of the future.
Yep.
Or at least so they think. We know Chicago has had their problems at the kicker position,
Yep.
especially with the double doink.
Sorry, Cody Parkey.
But Santos has been really nice ever since coming over to Chicago.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's always hard to, bank on a kicker. I feel like it's one of the hardest things because kickers have a lot, they're not really respected in this league, and they do a lot. And the thing is like, they're under immediate pressure all the time, like making kicks and especially like game-winning field goals and whatever. Like, that's like, I couldn't even think about how much stress they handle with on a daily basis, but I'm pretty sure, like you said, like Cairo Santos definitely will be a huge help for this, the Bears team for years to come.
Ryan Suckup re-signed with the Buccaneers, 3 years, $12 million. So another player that the Bucs were able to retain. I believe they have all 22 starters back from that Super Bowl winning team, including now their kicker too.
Yep. It's crazy. It shows the pride and testament to the team that they want to run it back. The Chiefs said it last year, and they were so close, but everything happens for a reason, I guess. And we'll have to see what happens this season.
Matt Prater left Detroit for Arizona, 2 years, $7 million. The Lions replaced Prater with Randy Bullock. He left the Bengals for the Lions. Nick Folk re-signed with the Patriots for 1 year, a little over $1 million. Speaking of Cody Parkey, he re-signed with the Browns for 1 year. And Dustin Hopkins re-signed with the football team for a year. Now the last two kickers who are free agents, Steven Gostkowski with the Titans and Dan Bailey with the Vikings. And I think both of these guys, obviously they're past their prime, but I'm surprised that they fell off the cliff so fast.
The thing with NFL kickers is that you could easily play to your 35, 38. Hey, I mean, Adam Vinatieri played until he was 46. I think he was still on a practice squad last year at 47. So kind of shows, you don't get hit as a kicker. You have a lot of longevity, and it shows like past their prime could be, whenever for a kicker.
And finishing out this free agency class with the punters. The most important position, right? The punter.
Yep.
Kevin Huber re-signed with the Bengals for 1 year.
The most important position. That cracks me up.
Pat O'Donnell re-signed with the Bears for 1 year. Andy Lee re-signed with the Cardinals for a year. Cameron Johnston signed with the Texans 3 years, $8 million. So that was probably the biggest deal right there. And the Bills signed Matt Hawk from the Dolphins. Corey Bojorquez is still a restricted free agent. Jordan Berry and Chris Jones and Thomas Morstead with the Saints are the three remaining unrestricted free agents from the punters. And before we close this segment, to get into the draft, which we will be covering over the next few weeks here, again, the draft order is Jacksonville, the Jets, the 49ers, Falcons, Bengals, Dolphins, Lions, Panthers, Broncos, and Cowboys sitting at 10. The Bills have the 30th pick in the draft. Real quick, what are your thoughts on this draft class?
Loads of talent, and I think there'll be immediate helps from day one, a lot of these guys.
All right, Aaron, well, thank you for coming on. We finally finished that free agency class. There will probably be some more moves ahead here as we get into the draft, but the majority of it is done. We were able to cover it all, and now we can get into draft talk starting next week. So thank you for coming on, and Dee will close out the show as we have our MLB segment coming up next.
We've been down there. You gotta do the same. Post office. All you do is sign. So don't get nervous. Sign your name. For selective service. It takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. For selective service.
Hey guys, if you're about to turn 18, you gotta register with Selective Service. It's simple. Just go down to the post office, fill out a card, and turn it in. That's all there is to it. There's no draft now. You're just adding your name to Selective Service's list in case there's a national emergency.
So if you're 18 now, Selective Service, you gotta get down to the post office.
Register with Selective Service. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the law.
Takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. Selective Service.
What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink.
If it's time for a drink this many times a day, you're not a social drinker. You're a problem drinker. And you could be well on your way to really messing up your life. Think about it. Talk to somebody about it. Do something about it before it's too late. A message in the interest of your better health from the American Medical Association.
This is not a commercial. If you think measles, mumps, whooping cough, or polio are nothing to worry about, you'd better think again, because they could make your child go blind or deaf. They can cripple or kill. To protect children, you have to get them immunized. Get them their shots. It costs nothing or very little, so get it done now by your doctor or local health center. Your child's future is in your hands. Don't let her down.
A message in the interest of better health from the American Medical Association.
Dee Thomas joins us now to finish out the show talking about the MLB. And Dee, before we get into the MLB, might as well talk some college baseball and softball here, as you guys are the first team to win out of the Fredonia team so far this spring.
Yes, so we have played 6 games total. We've only won 2, but they're 2 big games. They're 2 conference games, which is great. We beat Buff State and we beat Geneseo, who was ranked #1 in the preseason. So, you know, we're doing pretty good. We got some games coming up tomorrow. We're supposed to play Thursday against Brockport and supposed to play on Sunday against Oswego. So we got lots of conference games coming up.
I apologize. The Cross won today. They beat
they won?
Wells 18-0. So you still were the first team to win.
We were the first team to win.
But now baseball is the only team that has yet to win this year. They are 0-6. But congrats to the lacrosse team today. They won 18-0. And good luck to you guys as well tomorrow.
Thank you.
So, any quick thoughts on the game tomorrow? It's a non-conference game.
It's a
games against
doubleheader.
Rochester.
Rochester's ranked pretty good. You know, I think they have like a 15-4 record. So we'll probably have a couple girls playing that don't normally play. Give our starters a few breaks, you know, just to save us for, you know, the conference games coming up.
So that will be softball tomorrow. Baseball will be home Wednesday at 3 against Penn State Barron. Or did that one?
I don't think it got postponed. I think it's still on.
Oh, it was the one you were telling me your game next week against
Our
DUville.
game next week got canceled.
Okay, so a lot of cancellations here to keep straight.
You know,
but
it's, you know, spring sports happens all the time.
Now moving over to the MLB. So first, before we get into the games, probably the biggest news, at least for Yankees fans in the past week, was that the Yankees acquired Rougned Odor from the Rangers.
Yes, well, that happened on Sunday, which was quick because he ended up playing on Sunday and, you know, started. I'm not sure if he started, but he, you know, and he started our rally in the 10th inning to help us snap our losing streak against the Rays. We had lost 2 or 3 games in a row to the Rays, and, you know, it was time to put that beating to an end.
Wait, did you say he got traded on Sunday?
I
Because
think
it was
either
before
Saturday
that.
or Sunday.
No, I don't think it was.
Maybe Friday. It was right then and there. It wasn't recent. It was recent. but I don't know how recent.
6 days ago. So that was
Tuesday.
Yeah. Okay. Tuesday.
Okay.
So,
Still pretty recent.
But yeah, so he made his debut and he contributed to the Yankees. He actually had the go-ahead hit, like you said, against the Rays yesterday. And now he is baby Rougned Odor, as he had to shave all of his facial hair.
I saw a tweet where I think it was from him that was like, my daughter won't even look at me now because I don't have a beard. And I was like, well, when you shave your beard off, that's that drastic. I don't know how old his daughter is, but like if she's like young, then she's probably like, who is this man? Probably has no idea that it's him. So.
Yeah, so I love the trade for the Yankees because Odor is a guy who's hit over 30 home runs 3 times in his career. But at the same time, where are you going to put him in the lineup? I mean, he's a second baseman. DJ LeMahieu is a second baseman.
Maybe if, DJ got moved to first for a game, like say Luke Voigt's back, Luke Voigt could be the DH, DJ could play first, and Odor could play second. There's so many ways you can move the lineup around, then like you could do that. Or he could DH. Who knows? If he's hot enough, we could put, Aaron Boone could put him in the lineup as a DH. Who knows? Like if, Judge isn't doing well, Stan's not doing well, Hicks isn't. Anyone could be a DH if they're hot.
And then the other Yankees news was that they traded Thairo Estrada to the Giants. So moving into the games now, starting with Friday, we saw Oakland take down the Astros 6-2.
Yeah, go Oakland. Sorry, Trevor, but I'm not a Houston fan. I love that, Matt Olson blasted a 3-run home run, broke the 1-1 tie in the game. I'm cheering for anyone who beats the Houston Astros this year because they've still yet to pay for what they did to win the World Series a few years ago. So any team can take them down, and I will root for them.
Yeah, didn't I see that? I think it was for opening day when they were playing in Oakland that they were booing the Astros,
Yeah,
correct?
probably. I mean, I would boo them. I don't know about anyone else.
So yeah, they didn't get booed last year because of COVID, but I'm wondering if now that fans are returning to the stands, if they will still get that same treatment that they should have gotten last year.
I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
Well, right now the Astros are leading the AL West with a 6-3 record, and Oakland is at the bottom with a 3-7 record. But obviously it's early, and
It's
usually,
early. The Boston Red Sox are leading in the American East. It's early. Lots can happen.
And usually Oakland turns it on towards the middle and end of the year, and usually they, actually even before that too, but definitely look for Oakland to make a push again this year as a wildcard team, or maybe even contend with the Astros, or who knows, maybe the Angels this year out in the West.
Yeah, definitely. Even with, the reduced, how more teams made the playoffs last year. I think if they take that away and the same, the normal amount of teams that make it this year, I could see them making the playoffs, even if it is early in the season right now.
Now, speaking of the West, moving over to the NL West, the Diamondbacks lost to the Reds 6-5 on Friday. So Cincinnati's out to a pretty hot start, but since we're sticking with the West here, Arizona, they are 4-6. The Dodgers are leading the West with an 8-2 record, followed by San Diego 7-3. The Giants are 6-3. Like I said, the Diamondbacks are 4-6, and then the Rockies are 3-7. So not too many surprises there.
No, I remember earlier this semester when we were talking about the standings and the projected lineups and projected who's going to win the divisions. We saw that the Rockies and the Diamondbacks are at the bottom with the lowest percentages in those divisions. But who knows? They could, all of a sudden turn it around and just have an amazing year. Make it unexpected.
Now, as for the Reds, that was a great win for them. They are now 6-3, and they are in first place in the NL Central. And now moving to Saturday's games, first we saw the Pirates take down the Cubs 8-2. And I'm really not expecting much out of the Pirates this year.
Me neither.
Their roster, like I said a couple weeks ago, they're okay for the money that they're dealing with, but for the MLB level, I don't think it's going to cut it this year. So right now the standings are Cincinnati, Milwaukee, St. Louis, Chicago, and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh with a solid 3-6 record at the bottom.
Now going over to the AL Central, on Saturday, we saw Cleveland take down Detroit 11-3, and they ended up sweeping the Tigers this weekend.
hearing that, Cleveland sweeping the Tigers, I mean, Cleveland's great. They've always been great. They're always, fighting in the wild card, in the playoffs. You always see them playing against the Yankees. I can see them as a huge contender this year as, in the playoff run as well. Even the Detroit Tigers, even though they won 11-3, it's just one game. I mean, it's a series that they got swept in, but they could always turn it around for sure.
Well, so far through 8 games, the Indians lead that division with a 5-3 record, followed by Kansas City, Minnesota, Chicago, and Detroit. So they're only separated by 2.5 games right now. But again, it's way too early to start looking into who could do what this year. But just a little sneak peek as to what we have on this young season. Now, the other Saturday game that we saw, like Dee mentioned, Boston, they did beat Baltimore after getting swept by the Orioles at the beginning of the year. But they won this one 6-4.
I wrote on this thing that I said, yay, Boston lost. I read it wrong.
Yeah, wait, I just got confused because I was like, wait a sec.
I wrote, yay, Boston lost, and I switched it around. But Boston's leading the AL East right now, 6-3, but Toronto, Tampa, the Yankees, and Baltimore all have a 4-5 record. And right now, the Yankees are winning against the Blue Jays. So that's obviously going to switch up the standings. The Yankees will shoot up to second place with their record, and Toronto will move down into third place. Last I checked, it was a 3-1 score in the top of the 8th before I came here, but it could have changed since. But I just want Boston to lose. I'm not a Boston fan.
So like I said, Baltimore swept Boston to start the season, and now Boston swept Baltimore. So on Thursday, the Red Sox won 7-3. Saturday, they won 6-4. And then yesterday, they won 14-9 behind 3 home runs from JD Martinez.
He's just on fire. His bat is always on fire. So I could expect multiple home runs and more games this season from him.
And then for yesterday's games, like we said, Ruben Odor was a big hero for the Yankees. The Yankees finally beat Tampa 8-4. They came back.
It was a long time coming.
They scored 4 in the 10th inning, and that was enough to hold off the Rays.
The international tiebreaker they now enforce because of COVID. You started with a runner on second. They did their job. They started scoring. They stopped after scoring 4, and they just held them in the bottom of the 4th, the bottom of the 10th, and finally beat Tampa Bay Rays. I was very upset I'm super upset when I see the Yankees have lost by the Tampa Bay Rays. It's just so depressing when I see that.
So the standings right now are Boston is leading the division with a 6-3 record, followed by Baltimore, the Yankees, who are 4-5, Tampa, who's 4-5. Well, actually, they're all 4-5.
Like I said, they're all tied for second place, and if the Yankees win, the Yankees are going to go into second, and the Blue Jays are going to be tied for third with the remaining 2 teams. So.
And then finally, last night's game, Sunday Night Baseball. There was some controversy down in Atlanta as the Phillies won 7-6, but the game-winning run, Didi Gregorius hit a go-ahead sac fly, but Alex Bohm, he didn't really touch home plate. After a long review, I think they still got it wrong, and they said that he did touch home plate and he was safe, and that gave the Phillies a win. But looking at the replay, he didn't touch home plate.
They probably saw he had a hangnail on his pinky or something, and that's what barely touched home plate to make it enough. But I don't know. I like the review stuff, but sometimes when they review it and they get it wrong and you know it's wrong, that just frustrates you as a fan. I'm sure Atlanta is pissed about that. So.
And finally, to wrap it up, just about a minute left here. The other news coming out from this week, so some local baseball news here.
Local-ish.
Yeah, so there is a chance to have professional baseball back in Buffalo again this year. So the MLB is working on a plan that would relocate the Bisons to Trenton, New Jersey for the 2021 season. The Blue Jays are playing at their spring training facility in Dunedin, Florida until May 24th. So if the Canadian government still restricts international travel, on May 24th, we could see the Blue Jays back in Buffalo this year.
And that would be an amazing experience to, have professional baseball in, a 40-minute drive? That would be fun. It'd be so much fun. So let's hope it happens. I mean, we're all for having the border reopening, but to have some baseball and professional baseball in Buffalo, I would take that over that.
Yeah, and Salem Field hosts 16,600 people.
That's a lot of people.
With 20% capacity being allowed at outdoor venues, we could see 3,300 fans per game at Salem Field.
That was fast math. Good job.
And even if you can't get into the game, I think it's just going to be great for Buffalo from a marketing standpoint because it's going to bring in business and revenue to the city.
Definitely.
So with that, thank you for coming on, Dee, and thank you guys for watching yet again another week of Sports Hour, as we will do it again next week. Same time, same place, Monday night, 9 o'clock here from Hendricks Hall. Have a good rest of your night and week.
We've been down there. You gotta do the same. Post office, all you do is sign. So don't get nervous. Sign your name. For selective service, it takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. For selective service.
Hey guys, if you're about to turn 18, you got